All right, I'm going to continue now with what Obama calls the bad politics of politicians taking such secular approaches that they appear to neglect the concerns of the religious. For one, he writes, this leaves a dangerous vacuum. Over the long haul, I think we make a mistake when we fail to acknowledge the power of faith in the lives of the American people, and so avoid joining a serious debate about how to reconcile faith with our modern pluralistic democracy. To begin with, it's bad politics. There are a whole lot of religious people in America. According to most recent surveys, 95% of Americans believe in God. More than 2/3 belong in church, and substantially more people believe in angels than believe in evolution. When we abandon the field of religious discourse, when we discuss religion only in the negative sense of where or how it should not be practiced, rather than in the positive sense of what it tells us about our obligations towards one another, when we shy away from religious venues and religious broadcasts, others will fill the vacuum. And those who do are likely to be those with the most insular views of faith, or who cynically use religion to justify partisan ends. Those are excerpts from pages 213, 214, and 198. Cameras here are falling apart. There we go. All right. Now, as an example of negative political repercussion of ignoring the concerns of the devout, Obama recaps the history of how the Republican Party started taking advantage of this vacuum in the 1980s and harvested this crop of alienated Christians. By the time the 60s rolled around, many mainstream Protestant and Catholic leaders had concluded that if America's religious institutions were to survive, they would have to make themselves relevant to changing times by accommodating church doctrines to science. All right, now I'm going to skip a section here. I'm just going to get to the part where he talks about that section in America where churches could not adapt to science. What happened? Pushed out of sight but still throbbing with vitality throughout the heartland and the Bible Belt, a parallel universe emerged. A world not only of revivals and thriving ministries, but also of Christian television, radio, universities, publishers, and entertainment, all of which allowed the devout to ignore the popular culture as surely as they were being ignored. Yet, social upheavals such as the women's movement, the sexual revolution, the increasing assertiveness of gays and lesbians, Roe versus Wade, dismantling segregation, eliminating prayer in schools. Now, all this seemed a direct challenge to the church's teachings about marriage, sexuality, and the proper roles of men and women. Feeling mocked and under attack, conservative Christians found it no longer possible to insulate themselves from the country's broader political and cultural trends. It was the Republican Party, with its increasing emphasis on tradition, order, and family values, that was best positioned to harvest this crop of politically awakened evangelicals and mobilize them against a liberal orthodoxy. The story of how Ronald Reagan, Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, Ralph Reed, and finally Karl Rove and George W. Bush mobilized this army of Christian foot soldiers need not be repeated here. And those are from pages 199 to 201. So back again, once again, to Rick Warren. By welcoming rather than excluding such an influential evangelist to be at least a symbolic part of his presidency, Obama is increasing the likelihood that the Christian masses will not feel alienated and less likely to be harvested by ultra-right-wing fundamentalists with, as he put it, the most insular, or in other words, the most narrow-minded views of faith. Fundamentalists like Dobson that make Warren look tame in comparison. All right, I haven't been reading all my footnotes, but I'm going to read this one. Just as I was about to submit this post to Clashing Cultures, I came across this, what I thought was an excellent analysis from author Jonathan Roche. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, R-A-U-C-H. He's the author of Gay Marriage, Why It's Good for Gays, Good for Straights, and Good for America. And he had a good comment or post, I thought, on Dobson versus Warren. I didn't have time to work it properly into the post, but I included it here in the footnote. And this is what he writes. He writes that Dobson's letter from 2012 in Obama's America So Roche is commenting on Dobson's letter here. He's saying it's long and hysterical, filled with the kind of anti-gay obsessiveness and upside-down prioritizing that Rick Warren and others of his ilk and generation are moving away from. The more I think about Obama's choice of Warren to lead the inaugural prayer, the more I like it. Culturally, the moment is right to reach out to reachable evangelicals and marginalize the hysterics and obsessives who have all but monopolized their movement. The cultural left doesn't understand the difference between Warren and Dobson, but the evangelicals sure will, and they'll know Obama and Warren are publicly declaring Dobsonism obsolete. All right, back to Obama and how he uses, or arguably uses, Christianity. It may well be Obama's position on religion is the same as the ancient Roman philosopher Seneca, who said religion is regarded by the common people as true, by the wise as false, and by the leaders as useful. But on the other hand, I have another section here now, reasons to believe that Obama might be a Christian. All right, now my experience with several years of interviewing Christians, and that's, again, for my book, Dialogue with the Christian Proselytizer. Anyway, my experience with interviewing these people is that faith, even among Christians of the exact same sect, is just maddeningly complex and non-uniform, and it comes in many shades of gray. Now, of course, it's common for fundamentalists to say that faith casts away all doubt. Faith overrides even the most contradictory solid evidence. Many non-fundamentalists see doubt as something that they can allow space for while maintaining their Christianity. In the Audacity of Hope's chapter on faith, for example, he specifically writes, page 207, that faith doesn't mean you don't have your doubts. And he ends the chapter with ruminations on exactly how he should have responded to his young daughter's questions about death. And he's admitting that he has his doubts about the answers that his religion tells him. He writes, I wonder whether I should have told her the truth, that I wasn't sure what happens when we die, any more than I was sure of where the soul resides, or what existed before the Big Bang. It's on page 226. And in this interview with Newsweek, Obama, he goes so far as admitting that his religious views might be completely wrong. He says, I'm on my own faith journey, and I'm searching. I leave open the possibility that I'm entirely wrong. Now, the fact that Obama makes repeated mention of his doubts is one of the reasons I don't completely rule out the possibility that his faith actually he might actually be sincere when he calls himself a Christian. Maybe he'd be less likely to dwell on these doubts if his Christianity were strictly political. Now, of course, this could be part of his calculated act. So that's why I'm calling sections Reasons to Believe that Obama might be Christian. But more importantly is my next section, which I'll present in the next video, which is why I believe it just doesn't matter.